Apparently I say okay quite a bit throughout this video. I apologize in advance, but hey, at least now you'll know where the break in the segments and recording went. So enjoy the video. Sorry again. Okay, well, first things first, I want to thank everybody for taking the time who watched my first video, reached out to me, commented. It is extremely humbling for anybody to take the time that they've got and spend a little bit of it with me. So thank you very much. Second, this is a non-sound clip video, so if you're expecting like exhaust noises or drive-bys or anything of that nature, it's not going to happen on here. If that is something that somebody wants me to do, please let me know. I have no problem going out and trying to make a different video that has that stuff taken care of. So with that, we will get started. Okay, so for my opinion, to mean anything to you, you kind of need to know a little bit where I'm coming from. So I've got 18 years, or just about 18 years, of licensed street riding experience. I'm going to give you a list of the bikes that I've owned, not the ones I've ridden, because that would take too long. So I started off with the Kawasaki ZX6R, Yamaha R6, Honda 600RR, Yamaha V-Star 1100 Custom, Suzuki GS500, Honda 600RR, Suzuki Hayabusa Yamaha Roadstar 1600, Suzuki Katana 750, Japanese spec Yamaha R6, Kawasaki Z1000, Harley Davidson 83 Sportster, Triumph Street Twin, Triumph Tiger 800, Indian Scout the 69, not the 60, and of course now the Triumph T120 Black. Okay, so my overall impression of the bike really hasn't changed a whole lot from the initial impressions video. I still love it. I still think it's a fantastic bike. It suits my mostly town-ish and some short haul, overnight, maybe two-night type trips very well. It works for me extremely well. And I think really if you're taking the time to watch a video on a T120, it's because you already kind of want a T120. And if you're thinking about it, swing your leg over one, and I think you're going to be extremely pleased with it, just as I've been for the time I've had it so far. Okay, so engine, powertrain, exhaust. Um, let's just get this one out of the way because I think it's probably the easiest one to describe. Anyone who's ridden a parallel twin, especially in the liquid-cooled era of Triumph recently, they all basically feel very similar to each other, and that is not a bad thing. Um, Gobs of torque in the middle, you know, not necessarily, not like they've got a ridiculous amount up top, but they're not bad. They're exactly what they are designed to be. And I think the sound from like the Vance and Hine pea shooters on here, or even like the Street Twins, cans, I think it just sounds so nice, that rumble. And this bike is no exception. Um, I do love the fact, comparative to let's say the Street Twin, and I think also the T100 that only has a 5-speed transmission. The addition of that sixth gear is fantastic. In fact, I just did a trip a couple days ago, or about a week or so ago, that it was hours and hours away to go to the mountains. Well, a lot of it was just on boring roads to get there, and that sixth gear it just settles down, and it doesn't feel like you're really working the engine, and it's fantastic. Um, and that's something I don't think that can be overstated. I mean, I've had obviously some of the 600 RRs and the R6s and stuff, and yeah, sure, they'll go way faster than this bike, but they feel like when you're at just trying to cruise going down the road, they feel like an angry dog who's just trying to get out of its cage, and you're holding it back. And this doesn't have that feel. This kind of has that feel, almost more, I'll say, Harley-esque, of the idea that you get into the gear, it settles down, and you just kind of cruise. And I think that is absolutely wonderful and cannot be overstated enough about what kind of gem they've really created with any of these parallel twins, especially these liquid-cooled generation. Okay, so moving over to the riding, handling, that kind of stuff. Um, the initial impression of the video probably says it best. It feels great. It's for me, I think it works very well. The I know some people have complained about, let's say, a lack of adjustability, or that things are undersprung, oversprung, depending on your riding styles. And it's not perfect. There's definitely some improvement that can be made, but I don't think you could really knock it that much. I think in its stock kind of setup, without really making a whole lot of adjustments, it's still a very good bike. Um, like anything else, it depends on what you're looking for. Um, you could soften it up if you're trying to make it, handle bumps a little different. You can stiffen it up for, some different riding characteristics. But if you're someone that just wants to get on the bike, ride it to work, ride it to wherever, I don't think you're at any real hardship with this. Not really, anyway. So yeah, I don't think that'll be a problem for most people. Okay, moving to the brakes, I think is where I've got the biggest, I don't want to say gripe because that makes it sound like there's something really negative, and I don't think that it's really that negative. Um, the front Brembos are fantastic, and they stop really well. They've got nice feel. It's a good bite. There's some decent feedback that you kind of can feel through it, and the rear caliper on its own works fairly well as well. However, in the combination braking of obviously utilizing both brakes, because the fronts are so good, it almost makes the rear feel underpowered, even though it's not. And it's just a feel thing, and it's also a personal preference thing. But that's kind of the general gist I get of it. Not that it's underpowered, but yet again, when you compare it to that front, it just kind of has a different feel to it. Yet again, I don't think most people are going to have any problems with that, though. Okay, so getting into the couple issues I guess I've had with the bike, or even complaints I've had with the bike, as far as stock seat, not a huge fan. I think it looks good, and for up to maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, it feels okay. Anything you start getting on beyond there, I feel like it kind of starts to wear on you. I'm not someone who necessarily, if I'm taking on a trip, will stop to smell the roses for too long. Normally, it's get off, get gas, eat, whatever the case may be, get back on the bike and go. Not a whole, unless I'm riding with a group, there's not a whole lot of downtime. So, admittingly, if I took longer breaks, I probably wouldn't be so bad, but worth mentioning. Only other issue I've actually had with the bike was an issue with the brake master cylinder, not its function. However, the eagle-eyed viewers' first video would notice there was what looks to be like some paint and powder coat flaking off. Well, that's because it was. Um, Triumph immediately sent out a new master cylinder. They got it swapped. Everything was all good to go. Even got a new brake lever out of it. So that basically takes care of that. So. Okay, so perhaps one of the most, if not the most common thing people mentioned was the lack of the accessories. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think Triumph saw an area where they could expand some profit margin by not increasing or not including these things, and they decided to take it. I don't necessarily agree with that decision as a customer. I think they market the T120 as kind of like their top of the line Bonneville, and the idea that it doesn't have all of these things, especially since it used to have them, I think that sounds a little silly to me if it's going to be considered the top of the line for that segment, over the T100 and the Street Twin. Obviously, Speed Twin, I say, sits off to one side. Speedmaster, those kind of bikes, they sit off to other sides. But the fact that they don't include them, it's a little sad. Um, Also, people mentioned about the weight and that it was only the lack of accessories is how they managed to get that weight down. Without proof, I'm not going to say that that's the case, although I'm happy to, if somebody has a 19 to 21 kind of Bonneville T120, we can try and match them the best we can and see if we can't get an actual answer. Happy to do that if someone's around the OKC area. Okay, so another comment question that seems to come up with this and many other bike reviews is this a good first bike? And I will say from the get-go, I think it's a very manageable first bike. If granted, maybe tainted because I came from a 600 sport bike as my first bike, but I believe this to be a very manageable first bike. And mostly, I think it's because the bike isn't super heavy. And I think so often, weight aside, uh, if you're using the thing that's on your shoulders rather than worrying about the thing between your legs, you'll probably be better off and safer. You can get yourself into trouble on a 250 Honda Rebel just as easily uh, as someone who's riding a Hayabusa if you're being stupid. Um, so remembering to ride safe and remembering to ride within your capabilities and understanding what your capabilities are, I think is more important necessarily than what machine you happen to be swinging your legs over at that time. Um, I know some people probably disagree with me, but that's kind of how I view first-time riders and first-time bike riding in general.